Good morning, wives. Good morning. I know I'm early. But I wanted to come on today because I'm super duper booked and busy in the coming up days. And today is hair day. So that means I get to start coming out of this. Just came back from a little mini vacation, graduation, and I was like, well, let me try to bounce back into the rhythm of working. Sometimes when you're on, a little mini getaway, you be like, ooh, you get real comfortable in that place. It's real hard to kind of sometimes bounce back. But it's also good to take some of that time for yourself because it gives you an opportunity to kind of revamp, get rejuvenated, revitalize, kind of help you to, get your creative juices to flowing, and kind of get you, good morning, you get your, creative juices to flowing and kind of get you to, back to a relaxed place. And so I wanted to come on today. Happy Self-Care Thursday. Because I probably won't be able to go live on tomorrow because, like I said, straight back off the flight that was delayed. Got back super duper late last night, and so but during that time and prior to that, I had been having some time with God, and He gave me a revelation that I want to share with you on today. And this is for the mature crowd. This is really a revelation for the mature crowd. And so we're going to talk about that briefly, as you come on in or watch the replay. I want to welcome you. My name is Coach T. I am a marriage relationship consultant and a mental health wife coach. I help wives who are going through a marital separation for a temporary time. All right. I always say it's temporarily. Marital separation that's going through a season of, a separation temporarily. All right. Most of the wives that I coach or consult with are wives who husbands have abandoned their households, have left the home, adultery has taken place, addiction is in full effect. Some of these husbands are inside of the homes, and some of these husbands are no longer in the homes. And so I help these wives kind of really, really figure out where their husbands are spiritually, from a spiritual perspective. And then I help the wife to begin doing her work, right? I help her to begin doing her own personal work so that she would be in a healthy place when that husband returns. So she would be able to do what it is that God is calling her to do concerning her marriage. And so on that note, welcome. So you see my title. It says, She's Keeping Him Alive. Now you're probably like, Coach T, who is this she you talking about? Like, who is this she you talking about that's keeping him alive? And like I said, this is for the mature crowd today. But this is also for the wives who may be, interacting with that husband on a regular, or even living in the home with that husband who is living a separate life. All right. This is probably for the wife who is living with the husband, but they're living a separate life, meaning he's in a separate room, or he's in the room with her, but he's still living a separate life. And or for the wife who may have to be on regular, have to interact with this husband regularly because of the children, because of, maybe some things with the household, responsibilities and that such thing. So this is for that wife. And so I say she is keeping him alive. I am referring to the she as in the other woman. All right. I'm referring to she as in the other woman. Now, I am not on here to say that or to give the other woman no credit. I tell wives all the time the other woman is a distraction, okay? She is a distraction. She is a distraction for you, okay? But one of the things I do try to help wives to understand is sometimes where their husbands are from a spiritual perspective. I try to help their wives to understand, good morning, where their husbands are from a spiritual perspective. And a lot of times wives are really, really confused or just really, really thrown off by their husbands' behavior, or their husband's, changes, or their husband's, how one day, he was this way, how one minute we was so in love, and now he dismisses me, he doesn't talk to me, he barely, can look at me, he said he doesn't love me, he hates me, a lot of times these wives are really, really mentally trying to accept like really where the husband is and how did he get to this place. And if you go back, I think it's in Galatians, and it said, who bewitched you? Who bewitched you, right? And this is one of the reasons why I'm always emphasizing to wives why it's so important for you to do your own work. Not only are you doing your own inner work on yourself and getting yourself in a healthy place, but you need to start doing your work as a Christian. You need to start doing your work as a Christian, because a lot of times things that's taking place in the spiritual realms, wives are unaware of. They're unaware of. A lot of times these wives are unaware of the tactics and the schemes and the agendas of the enemy, and how he is coming against households and families, and how he is tricking God's people, right? And so once you become aware of what you're dealing with, once you become aware of your opponent, then you'll be able to start looking at your opponent from a different perspective. You'll have a different, perspective about what you're going on. So many times your husband is in such a place of demonic oppression. All right. Many of these husbands who have been quote unquote bewitched, many of these husbands who have, turned to addiction, who have turned to, who have, just abandoned their homes all of a sudden, who has turned into adultery. You have to understand your husband has given the enemy access to his life. And a lot of times when the enemy has access to your husband's life, even if he wants to come back and be, normal with you. Because he may sometimes, I get a lot of times where wives say, well, my husband, he said, he want to come home. Or my husband, he's acting this kind of way, or he's saying these kind of things, but he's still doing this. He said he loved me, and he said he know what he's doing is not wrong, but he's not making a decision to change. And what wives are not understanding is they are not able to do so because the enemy has access to their lives. When these husbands have given or have opened the door to the enemy in this way, you have to understand that the enemy has full access to their life. So they're not able to just come from out of what they're in. A lot of these husbands have gotten into through things, through addiction, like I said, through adultery, having sex with different type of women, by interacting and coming in contact with different type of environments. A lot of these, husbands are, interacting with, different type of, wicked spirits on the outside, and you don't know the type of things. And this is why I always try to express to wives that you need to be in place, wife, when that husband comes around. You need to be in place, wife, when that husband comes back home, because you don't know the different things that he's interacting with. One of the things that the Lord had put on my spirit, on my mind, when I was, flying back home, was that I'm not saying that him being with the other woman is right. I'm not saying that, I'm in agreement with him being with the other woman. But what I am saying is that could be the very thing that is keeping him alive. Now, we're not even talking about the wife and her prayers keeping him alive. Because yes, from a spiritual side, that is the thing that's keeping him alive. But when you think about him and this other woman, a lot of times these husbands are under such demonic oppression. These husbands are having suicidal thoughts. These husbands are mentally breaking down. These husbands are emotionally wounded. These husbands are dealing with a lot of things that's coming against their minds, coming against their spirits, coming against their bodies, coming against their souls. And for that reason, any minute now they can go down. Any minute now they can go down. The other woman, in a sense, is like his medicine. The other woman, in a sense, is like a medicine for him. It's not necessarily a good medicine for him, but it's a medicine for him that's keeping him, to have something to look for. That's keeping him, to doing something, even if what he's doing is not right. The other woman is giving him a reason to, okay, well, I know I'm not doing right by my family. I know I'm not doing right by my wife and my children, but at least this person, I can talk to this person. I can feel some type of way. Or at least, I'm talking to this person and this person making me, feel this type of way. Or I can go around this kind of person and feel this type of way, because the different things that I'm, dealing with and warfare with in my mind, this kind of like keep my mind off of those things. This other woman is like that distraction to keep my mind off of all the other stuff that I know that I'm doing wrong. Shame, guilt, all these things these husbands are dealing with. All right. These husbands are dealing with guilt. They're dealing with shame. They're dealing with sometimes these husbands have to keep themselves in a place of, of addicted to something, whether it be drugs, alcohol, women. They have to be addicted to something, or keep themselves, keep their mind, to even keep themselves, going, because they're so deep into this thing and they want to get out. They want to, they want to come out of this, but they're not able to come out of it because the enemy has access to them. And so this is where the wife comes in at. This is where his wife comes in at. Because though the other woman may be that bad drug for him, though the other woman may be that bad medicine for him, though the other woman maybe, have his attention and, have his attention at this time, maybe she's doing those things. You, as his wife, you have power and authority to go after the enemy's camp. You, as his wife, have the power and authority to go after the enemy's camp and pull him from out of that place where the enemy have access to. The other woman can't do that. The only thing the other woman can do is keep him coping. The only thing the other woman can do is just keep him from, she's like a coping mechanism for him. All right. That's all that she can do. She can keep him sexed up. She can, give him the drug. She can, feed him all the lies and, things in his ears. She can, emotionally, tell him things and lust him up. That's the only thing that she's doing. Is that a good thing? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's not necessarily a good thing. But that is what she is doing. And it's just, and those things right there can be the very thing that's keeping your husband from going to commit suicide. Because his mind is so gone, or his mind is so, playing all kinds of tricks with him, and the enemy is telling him all types of things. This other woman is keeping him distracted from those things. This other woman is keeping him from the thinking about the guilt and the shame. Now, does that dismiss his behavior? Does that say, oh, well, or that means he's going to just continue to do this because the other woman's going to be in his ear? No, I'm not even sitting here telling you that what the other woman thing, the other woman's situation is a good thing. I'm not telling you that. But what I am trying to help you to understand is this is what the other woman is doing. She's a coping mechanism for your husband's condition. Whether your husband's condition is dealing with adultery, abandonment, addiction, that other woman is a coping mechanism. She is not the main issue. And this is why I always try to express to wives, don't get so entangled by, oh, him and the woman, they doing this. Oh, he say he love the woman. Or he say this. He gonna love her. So he say he gonna be so, so madly in love with her. He gonna do the things with the other woman that he probably would never do with you. Okay. He's gonna, the enemy is gonna it's gonna set it up like that for it to look like that. Okay. He's gonna go over and abort for her and her children, and he's gonna do things with her that you thought that he was supposed to do with you. But you have to understand why that you are the one who can get him out. The other woman on the natural side, that's all she has access to. She has access to him on the natural side. But you, as his wife, you have access to him on the spiritual side. And the spiritual side is way more stronger than what's in the natural. The spiritual side, some things can take place and manifest on the spiritual end that doesn't necessarily take place on the, that have to come forth on the natural side. You, wife, have the power and authority to go behind closed doors on your husband's behalf, call out to God on your husband's behalf, and call God down in your situation. The other woman does not have it. There's no comparison with you and the other woman. The other woman, she can never be you. The other woman could never be what your husband needs. She's only a coping mechanism. She's just somebody that's there. Your job as his wife is to pray for your husband. Your job as his wife is to stand in the gap for your husband. Your job as his wife is to contend for your husband's salvation. Your job as his wife is not to get so focused and caught up on what's taking place in the natural. Your job as his wife is to go after things, that's happening in the spiritual realm, because it's in the spiritual realm where things are happening and taking place. What your husband need is deliverance. What your husband need is salvation. What your husband need is for God to come down and help him. The other woman cannot help him that way. She cannot help him. She would never be able to help him that way. The only thing that other woman is good for is some sex, is some conversation, is for some time talking on the phone. This is the only thing the other woman is good for. She's not good for nothing else. But you as his wife, you can save his life by contending for his salvation. You as his wife can go into the enemy's camp and call those things that's taking place in the enemy's camp to come down. You can, as his wife, can call fire down on your husband's behalf. That wife, she can't do that. I mean, that other woman, she can't do that. You as his wife can call fire down against that woman. You as his wife can ask God to consume that relationship, that relationship with the Holy Ghost fire. You as his wife can ask God to break that soul tie with the fire of God. You as his wife can ask God to intervene and to demolish that relationship with the fire of God. You as his wife have power and authority. All right. Because it's not just you, wife. You are walking in hand with God. All right. It's not just you and your husband that's in covenant. It's you, your husband, and God. And because you are his wife, good morning, because you are his wife and you are walking in alignment with God. And this is why it's so important for you to be in alignment with God. And this is why it's so important for you to make sure that you are living your life the right way and doing what you're supposed to be doing. This is why you can go after your husband in the spirit realm. The other woman, yes, she's keeping him alive on the natural side, on the natural side. She's a coping mechanism. She's a coping mechanism for him to get through his guilt, to get through his shame. She's a coping mechanism to help him get through, all the, for him not to think about all the wrong things that he's doing. She's a coping mechanism to keep his mind off of this. She's that thing that's keeping him so high where he's not worrying about, life. But in order for that to continue, in order for that to maintain, it has to be like an ongoing thing. All right. But you as his wife, you can go on this side and say, God, I call the fire down on this relationship between my husband and the strange woman. God, I call the fire down to demolish that soul tie. God, I call the fire down for your anger, for your judgment to demolish this relationship between my husband and this woman. God, I call a fire down. God, I pray for my husband's salvation on today, Father. I pray now, God, ask that you will open my husband's eyes, God. I pray, God, for the fire of God to consume his heart, God. Lord, I pray that you will bring hatred between my husband and the strange woman. Come on, Jesus. Good morning. I pray that you will bring hatred between my husband and the strange woman. I call a fire down, God, to divide and come in between everything that they got going on. In the name of Jesus, God, I call a fire down. I call a fire down to come between anytime they try to come together or come together in relationship or come together and have sex or come together on the phone. I call a fire down, God, for you to destroy this thing by fire. I want to encourage you, wife. I want to encourage you to contend. Don't stop contending for your husband's salvation. This other woman will not win. Your prayer is, God, do not allow this woman to take my husband. Do not allow this woman, this strange woman, this witch that was sent, this evil agent that was sent. Do not allow this to take my husband. As I come and I'm contending on his salvation, I'm contending for his life. I'm contending for him. God, I'm asking for you to come in and intercede on our behalf. The strange woman, the other woman, she's keeping him alive, but the way she's keeping him alive is like somebody who is having to be on a machine for the rest of their life. Your husband is on a machine when he's dealing with the strange woman. He's not even operating in his natural self. He's not even operating in his natural mind. He cannot be normal with this other woman. He cannot be his healthy, whole, authentic self with this other woman. He cannot operate in his full potential, operate how God has called him or ordained him to be. He cannot be that. He has to be somebody else when he's with the strange woman. He cannot be who God has called him to be while he's with this strange woman, while he's dealing with this other woman. So that means he has to stay high. He has to stay on, on drugs. He has to keep drinking. He has to keep hiding. He has to keep lying. He has to keep staying out. He has to stay away from his family. He cannot, because the Bible tells us that dark and light does not. It cannot come together like that. All right. One is going to outdo the other one, and light is going to always outdo the dark. Okay. So you have to understand, she may be keeping him alive right now. In that way, she's keeping him alive as compared to a person who is on a machine and they are only living based off of this machine. Your husband, wife, is operating under a machine while dealing with this other woman. So this is why I always try to tell wives, take your focus off of the other woman. Your focus needs to be on God. What is it you want me to do? God, how can I get myself healthy or get myself in a better place so that I know what I need to do concerning this matter? God, what do I need to do? How can I be healthy? What is it you want me to do so I can know how to be in place and know how to operate when I'm dealing or interacting with my husband? God, what is it that you want me when he comes around to get the kids, or when me and him speak? How is it that you want me to respond to him? How do you want me to, how do you want me to interact with him? This is why I'm always encouraging wives to make sure that you're doing your work. You would not be able, in your right state of mind, be able to be okay with your husband interacting with this person like this and being this kind of way with this person. It's going to always be the side eye. It's going to always be an attitude. It's going to always be strife. It's going to always be division. If you do not allow God to come in and download into you the wisdom, the understanding, the knowledge that you need, you have to do your work. Ain't no wife is going to ever be okay with her husband being with another woman. Ain't no wife is going to ever be okay with another woman taking a place or trying to take a place, because she cannot take her place. But ain't no wife is going to ever be okay with another woman trying to come in and be something to her husband that she cannot be. You're not going to be okay with that. So let's just settle that right now. You're not going to be okay with the other woman. You're not going to be okay with your husband doing things with the other woman. You're not going to be okay with that. But look at it from this way. The other woman is keeping him alive. Your husband is a machine. It's like he's on a machine. And if he didn't have that other woman in his ear, if he didn't have that other woman doing the things that she's doing with him or whatever she think that she's doing with him or whatever, if he didn't have that, your husband by now would have probably thrown his life away. He would have been in committed suicide. He would be thrown in the tower. He'd been gave in. However, greater is he that's in you than he that's in the world. And no weapon formed against you shall prosper, right? You have covenant. You have covenant with God. And because you have covenant with God, and because your husband is your husband, and you have covenant with your husband, you get to fight back against the enemy. The other woman, she can't fight the enemy. She can't come against the enemy because she's working for the enemy. So she can't fight against the enemy. But you as his wife, you can fight against the enemy. You as his wife can contend for his salvation. You as his wife can go to God on his behalf and ask God to release your husband from out of this darkness. Many times, wives, your husband has given his life and the enemy has full access to his life. And because the enemy has full access to his life, what you are expecting from your husband, you are not able to get those things from him. You're not able to get those things that you want from him, right? So I want to just share these three things with you. I want to share these 3 points with you. And number one, I said that over and over again. Don't stop contending for your husband's salvation. All right. That's number one. The other woman may be keeping him alive from a natural standpoint, but that's all she can do because of the relationship that they have. She may be able to keep him alive on a natural standpoint, but keeping him alive, that means he's going to be doped up. That means he's going to be on some type of, some kind of, alcohol. That means he's bewitched somewhere. Okay. If it's not alcohol, or if it's not alcohol or drugs or, sex, he's bewitched in some type of area. She has bewitched him. And a lot of times what wives don't understand is your husband can get bewitched through sex. If your husband is having sex with another woman, having sex with multiple women, he's bewitched. He's underneath an attack. And so he is no longer, this is why I try to tell wives, stop looking at him as that husband that you married. He is no longer that person. He is not that person. He's on a machine. It's very similar to a person who is in a coma place. They're in a coma. And the only way that person is living and breathing is because of that machine. That is what's happening. This is what I want wives to understand today. That is what's happening when your husband is involved with another woman. He's in a comatose state. Okay, he's in a comatose state. He has no control of what's going on with him because the enemy has full access to him. So now he's vulnerable. He's vulnerable to the strange woman. He's vulnerable to outside influences. He's vulnerable to evilness. He's vulnerable. So any little thing can come and get him. Any little thing can come and tour him. Any little thing can come and toss him to and fro. But that's why you as his wife, you got to be praying. This is why I always tell wives, don't stop praying for your husband. Don't stop praying for your husband. Now, I'm not telling you to make it your life. But what I am saying is continue to contend for your husband's salvation. All right. Number 2, don't stop believing God. If God made you a promise concerning your marriage, don't stop believing God. A lot of times I know it seems like this ain't going nowhere. Ain't nothing taking place in this, God. Ain't nothing happening. Ain't nothing moving. Ain't nothing shaking. Matter of fact, it seems like things are getting worse. You have to understand that God is a just God. God is faithful. And if he said a thing, those things will come to pass. The moment he tells you something, the moment he gives you a promise, the moment he says, okay, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, expect the opposite to happen. This is why I try to tell my wife clients all the time. Ain't no sense of you trying to look for, okay, God made this promise to me, so God told me, my husband gonna come back home, and my husband gonna do this, and my husband gonna do that. Okay, but expect the opposite to happen right now. Because when God give you a word, usually all hell break out. When God give you a promise, usually everything opposite happened to what he said. And so what happens is the enemy, he comes and counterfeit, do a counterfeit with it. And what he does is turning around. What he does is turning around and he'll make the wife believe that, this is God. Because my husband, he came over today. Or my husband, he's being nice today. Or me and my husband, we slept together today. Or me and my husband, we was talking on the phone today. So the enemy will makes you think that, oh, this is God. God is moving. God is doing some stuff. But really, that ain't God doing anything. So this is why I try to tell wives to help wives to understand. When God gives you a word and gives you a promise, expect the opposite to happen. Hold on to the promise. Hold on to what he said to you, but expect the opposite to happen. All right, let me read what you have here. You said the promise is tough. How do we know he promised that? Are we going on the word of God? You got to be able to hear from God. He never told me he was saving my marriage unless I missed it. You have to be able to hear from God. You have to be able to hear from God for yourself. And a lot of times what I tell wives to do is you got to get into that secret place. This is a good way for you want to sign up for a consultation. I can give you a little bit more details as far as, the steps that, you can start taking. But you got to get into that secret place with God where you can hear from God. Because a lot of times wives do not have a revelation from God based off of what he is asking concerning their marriage. And a lot of times wives are like, am I supposed to stay in this marriage? Am I supposed to go along with this? You need to know that God is calling you to this type of stand, and you need to know that God is calling you to do this type of battle, because this is not for everybody. So if you haven't heard from God, the first thing for you to do is for you to get into a place to hear from God. You make so much sense with sex being addiction. My husband isn't on any drugs or alcohol, but my best friend is really being so sexual. She became someone I don't recognize. Either do think Jezebel is on her. He won't admit to having an affair. Yeah, sex is one of the number one ways that the enemy is using to bewitch husbands. This is what this This is the world we live in. This is how it's happening. So the enemy is using sex to bewitch husbands. This is one of the ways. But you have to understand that even with that being the case, you as his wife have the authority and power to bring and call those things down. But you're not going to be able to do those types of things if you don't do your own personal work. You're not going to be able to go and pray on your husband's behalf if you're not doing your own work. God has to work on you, wife. God has to mature you. God has to develop some tough skin in you. God has to break some things down in you. God has to deal with your flesh. He has to break you down. All right. They sometimes is love or lust, but you can pray against that as well. Too many times wives are focusing on the other woman and what they're doing and how it is. And you have to, I want to just say this again and emphasize this. Your husband is in a comatose stage when he has made a decision to leave his marital home, be with the other woman. Him and you are still married, but he has made a decision to leave his marital home and he's involved with another woman, knowing that you and him are still married. He is in some type of bewitchment. He is having some type of spiritual activity. A lot of times this is witchcraft. That's all. It's witchcraft. That's the simplest way to say it. Your husband has been bewitched. He's been bewitched. And so a lot of times when these husbands are leaving their homes and they start acting funny towards their wives and, oh, I ain't never loved you in the first place. Or I ain't never want to, do this with you in the first place. Or, I wasn't, we wasn't supposed to, get this far in our marriage. And when they start talking like that, all crazy sideways, what you have to know that some type of witchcraft attack has taken place. All right. And so wives, do not stop believing God for your marriage restoration. Do not stop believing God's promises that he made to you. And I want to just kind of highlight this. I think I spoke briefly about this. I think I spoke briefly about this when I said that we are in a season of deliverance. And so because we are in a season of deliverance, the enemy is coming even harder. He's coming even harder in this season after God's people because he do not want the promises that God made to them to come to pass. So I'm encouraging you to go back to read the story of Moses. God wants to know, will you speak to the rock and not strike the rock? Will you speak to the rock and not strike the rock? And so a lot of times what's happening is because you have been on this ride for so long, because you've been on this, this same for so long, the enemy is frustrating you. He's frustrating you in this season so that you can strike the rock. And ultimately when Moses struck the rock, he did not get to the promise. He did not get to the promised land. He did not get to go to the promise with, and cross over with the people. That's his Joshua was the one that took the people into the promised land, right? And so you have to understand this is what the enemy is doing, and this is why it's so important for wives to make sure that they are staying alert. Hello. This is why it's so important. I cannot emphasize this. It's happening. I'm seeing it happen. I'm telling you. I've talked to wives who this is happening to. I'm telling you, you have to be on alert. This is your season. This is your hour of deliverance. This is a season where God is coming through with his promises. But what the enemy is doing, he's working overtime. He's sending all his people out to do just that. Good morning. He's sending, good afternoon. He's sending all his people out in this hour to come for God's people. You have to understand that. You have to understand this is our hour. This is our season of deliverance. And the enemy is working overtime. He's working overtime to interfere, to stop what the promises that God has made to you. I've spoken to 3 wives already that this is happening to. Okay. I've already spoken to hello. I've spoken to 3 wives already. This is already happening to. These wives have been contending. These wives they have been standing. They have been on this journey. They have been going in. They have been going hard with doing things that God has been asking of them. But because they're getting tired, because they're getting weak, because they have no accountability, because they are not following through, the enemy is coming in. He is coming in. You have to stay alert. You have to be on alert at all times. Your husband is in a coma stage. He is in a coma state. He is like on a person that's on a machine. Okay. When I say she is keeping him alive, I'm referring to the other woman. She is the machine that's keeping your husband alive. All right. She is the machine that's keeping your husband alive because your husband is dealing with guilt. He's dealing with shame. He's dealing with, he's battling suicidal thoughts. He's trying to drunk himself. He want to take medicine, pills to keep himself asleep. He wants to keep himself, doped up, drugged up, alcohol up, sexed up. He want to do all these things so that he don't have to think about these things. But God has given you power and authority, wife. God has given you power and authority to go into the enemy's camp. The one thing that the other woman cannot do, she cannot go into the enemy's camp on your husband's behalf. That job has been given to you, his wife. Hello. That job is only given to you, his wife. Wife, you have a responsibility to make sure that you're doing your work. Don't stop contending for your husband. Don't stop believing God about the promises that he made for you. And do not stop on your journey. This is the last big thing that's happening. Too many wives are getting so close to the door. But because every time they get close, the enemy snatched them back. Every time they get that, they snatch back. Oh, y'all done got into an argument. Y'all was doing good. Y'all wasn't talking. This and that was happening. Now all of a sudden, you done seen him or something came up. Oh, now y'all was spending time together. Y'all was spending time together. Now the other woman done called the phone. So now y'all back at square one. You have to understand why the enemy is using all types of trickery in this hour, in this season. The best thing I can tell you is to take your eyes off of your husband and the other woman and to place your eyes on God. And that's, you said, that is so hard to do on a regular basis. It is. You have to be intentional because the enemy is being intentional about taking your promise from you. The enemy is being intentional about taking your promise from you. The other woman is a distraction. The other woman is keeping your husband alive as if your husband was in a coma. He's in a coma and she's a machine that's keeping him alive. She's feeding him all this negative juices. She's feeding him all this negative stuff. She's sexing him. She's giving him drugs. She's cooking for him. She's doing everything that I ain't never get this did with my wife. My wife ain't never do this kind of stuff with me. She's doing everything because that's what the enemy is using her to do. But you gotta be wiser. You gotta be wiser than the serpent in this hour. You have to be wiser. You have to understand that this is what his job is. He ain't gonna ever get tired of doing his job. You have to go back to the story of Genesis with Eve when God proclaimed and put the curse on us. Like, I'm gonna bring this between you and the enemy. It's gonna be a curse that's gonna be between you and the enemy, and you will crush his head. You will crush the head of the serpent. You have to understand the enemy is not about your husband. This is not about your husband. This is about you, wife. This is about you. And this is why you have to make sure that you're doing your own personal work. You have to make sure. Do not get this far on your journey. Even if you're doing this journey alone right now and you're unaware, I want to encourage you to sign up for a consultation. Don't be out here trying to do this by yourself. Don't be out here trying to say, oh, I got it. It's just me and God. You better listen to somebody. The enemy is not playing. He's not fighting fair in this hour. He's not fighting fair in this season. And he is after what God has promised you. I'm telling you that right now. God wants to know, will you be strong enough? Will you be able to speak to the rock and not strike the rock? Because you strike that rock, if you mess around and strike that rock, you miss out on the promise. Okay? You miss out on the promise. Let me read some of y'all comments and then I'm gonna let y'all go. He filed for divorce, so does this mean my covenant is broken? Are y'all divorced? Because even when your husband filed for divorce, that don't mean that y'all still married. Have y'all went to court yet? Have y'all went to actual court and had court? Because if that hasn't happened, you need to be contending. You need to be in prayer. You need to be fasting. You need to be praying. You need to get with someone who can help you. You need some scriptures. Send me a message. I'm gonna see if I get that ebook to you. Let's see. Real talk, that issue with Moses come to my mind frequently. Absolutely. Moses, that's the story that I've been hearing a lot lately about, Moses not making it to the promised land. We are in the season of deliverance. I think I spoke to y'all early in the year that we are in a new era. We are in a new era. And this is the year of deliverance. This is the year that God is going to bring his thing to pass. He's going to bring the promises to pass. And if you're not in place, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss it. My husband still wants a divorce. I have prayed, fasted, believed in all. The devil not letting up. He not going to let up. He not going to let up. The only thing you can do is continue to contend. The only thing you can do is continue. You need to get a word from God. So many wives are trying to figure out how to continue on this journey, even with, and this is why I tell wives, stop talking to your husband, stop communicating with your husband. The less you talk to him, the less you communicate with him, the better, right? If he's not in that house with you and you don't have to, deal with him on a regular basis like that, stop communicating with him. Your focus cannot be on what he's doing and everything that he wants. Every time you talk to him, he gonna want a divorce. Every time you speak to him, he's gonna mention divorce. Every time y'all come into contact with each other, that's what's gonna come up. He's gonna want a divorce. You need to know how to go in prayer and be able to call those things. You need to be able to call fire down on those divorce papers. Lord, I send the fire of God to consume and burn those divorce papers up in ashes. I send the fire of God. I send the Holy Ghost fire to consume and destroy those divorce papers with the fire of God. This is what you have to do. You have to get with somebody. That's solid advice. Intentionally is a must. You have to be intentional on this journey. You won't win no other way. My eyes are fixed on him, and every time I take them off the enemy's pounces, he will. He will. We absolutely need community, 1000%. Yep. Not yet, but getting close. I needed this. The less we talk is better. Yes. Stop talking to your husband. Stop talking to your husband. Stop focusing on him and the other woman. And do understand, she's keeping him alive, but she's keeping him alive as if a person is on a machine. Your husband is in a comatose state right now. Your husband is in a comatose state. If he has abandoned his household, if he's dealing with addiction or adultery, you have to understand your husband has been bewitched. Your husband has been bewitched. You, wife, your responsibility as his wife is to continue to contend for him. But you got to get with someone who can walk you through this. You got to get the right tools. You got to get the right resources. You got to know when to pray. You got to know how to pray in season and out of season. You got to know how to fast. You have to have a strategy. They talk about this with that movie, the War Room. You need a strategy. Everybody's situation is different. Your opponent, you may all be dealing with another woman, but the way that a woman is coming for you, that person, whoever the enemy is using your husband, let me say it like this. Whoever the enemy is using against you with your husband and the other woman, that is the person that God has called you to bring down. That is a person that you are supposed to go after. That is a person who God is calling you to destroy by fire. That is a person, but you're not going to be able to do that in your own self. You're not going to be able to do that not doing your own personal work. You're not going to be able to do that if you're not healthy enough yourself. You're not going to be able to do those types of things, okay? It's just not going to happen. Let's see. Signed the divorce papers. They came back, boarded, poured the courts. Definitely would stop focusing on him and her. Yes. I don't recommend nobody sign no papers, no divorce papers. Don't do that. Don't do that. If the court ain't call you into the courts, do not sign nothing. They can send you papers all day long. If the courts themselves have not petitioned you to come to the courts, then don't sign anything. It's difficult because my husband is still in the home, but I'm learning how to navigate. He told me yesterday he wants to work on his marriage as much as I want to believe him. He needs to work on his. One of the most difficult parts of being, going through a marriage, hardship is when the husband is in the home. It's very, 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 very hard to do. And you have to be very, very careful. You have to be very, very careful because the enemy knows how to use your husband to work against you. Because he knows your weak spots. Your husband knows your vulnerable areas. He knows those places. You have to get in a quiet place, sit with somebody, get with you a wife coach or some type of accountability. Get with someone who can walk you through the steps and give you a strategy plan. You're not going to be able to do it by yourself, even if your husband is in the home and he's saying he want to work on it, because the enemy knows how to manipulate. He knows how to twist things. He knows how to make your husband say one thing. Your husband knows your weak spot. He knows your vulnerable area, and so he can say things to you, and it could be a way that the enemy is using to keep you in a weak spot, and then he come from out of nowhere and fire back. So you have to understand, like, you got to get help. You got to get help. Relationship with God, and until he does that, we'll still keep going through. Yes, definitely need a consultation. I need y'all to sign up, my Lord. You are speaking. I need you to sign up. Listen, baby, I was separated 3 times, all right? And out of those 3 times, I want to say the hardest times were when my husband was in the house. My husband was in the house. When I was hearing and listening to my husband on the phone with another woman, when my husband was planning trips to be with another woman, went to be with other women, when my husband told me, he didn't want this marriage stuff no more. He didn't want to do this stuff no more. I kept on asking God, like, God, just give him what he wants. Like, just give this man what he wants. If he don't, if he don't want this, like, let's not force this if he don't want it. Cause like, what's most hurtful to a woman is for somebody to keep telling them that they don't want you. Like, they don't want you. I don't want you. I don't want you. And so the more and more I would ask God to release me from that, again, me being in the house with my husband, the more and more I would ask God to release me from that, the more and more God would tell me to keep trusting him. The more and more I would ask God to let me go and foul, or let me get out of this, the more and more God would tell me to keep trusting him. Then, that's why I always talk about the story of Moses, because that was one of the things that God, brought up to me. It was almost like, are you going to trust me more than your husband? Because you're going to mess around and try to do these things your way, and you're going to forfeit the promises that I have already promised you. The promises is already done, y'all. It's already done. It's a sealed deal. It's already done. Your job is to continue to trust God. Your job is to continue to contend, but you need a strategy. You need an action plan. You need somebody who understands you. You can't talk to everybody. You can't watch everybody. You can't listen to everybody. You need a plan. You need to pray and ask God to align you with the right person or the right persons who your ear is supposed to be in tune with, who you supposed to be getting coached by, who you need accountability with. And then if finances is a problem, you ask God to open the door. God, you got to make a way. You got to open the door. You got to make a way. All right. This is what you have to do. This is not something that you can do on your own. This stand ain't no joke. It's fierce. And I'm telling you, it will knock you off your feet. Hands down. It will knock you off your feet. You can be at the door has opened, and walking in, and you can get snatched back and have to go all the way back to the end of the line. It happened to me. Okay, it happened to me. Get some accountability in this season. Get some understanding in this season. Get some wisdom in this season. And please know that your husband and what him and this other woman got going on, she's keeping him alive on this machine. She's keeping him alive on this machine. But you, wife, you can keep him alive from a spiritual standpoint and keep his soul alive. You can keep him alive and get him back in the right place where he needs to be with God. You have to learn how to call down Holy Ghost fire to demolish the plans of the enemy. You have to know how to come down and call down Holy Ghost fire to destroy the plans of the enemy and what he's trying to do. The enemy ain't so much after your husband than he is after you. More than anything, wife, he want to take you out. And so this is why I always encourage wives, you have to stand up, you got to do your work. So on that note, I want to encourage you, if you have not signed up for your wife consultation, you can do so. The Her Bonus Boost is for the wives to do their work. But if you are a wife and you are in a season where you say, I still need to talk about my husband's stuff a little bit more, I still need to figure this stuff out with him, like I got questions still, I'm still mad, I'm still angry, and I'm still trying to figure out, what I'm really supposed to do, am I supposed to be really walking this walk? I want to encourage you to sign up for your grief sessions. All right, for your grief sessions, I'm now offering a special for the months of the summer. I don't have no more availability for the month of June, but for July, you can sign up to secure your days. I only have 2 days left in the month of June for that. For the discount, for the promotion. You can sign up at www.marriagechroniclesbytanika.com. That's where you can get 4 sessions under $600, basically. All right, you get 4 sessions for under $600, and so you really want to really take a hold of that, because those sessions are normally not that cheap. I normally charge $1,000+ for those sessions, but I am offering as a promotion for during the summertime, during the summer months, as a discount. I'm giving to you. It's like half off in a sense. All right, you're getting it for half off. So if you want to sign up for those sessions, if you still are someone who have a lot of questions, you're trying to figure out where your husband's at, you're trying to figure out where he's at spiritual, you're trying to figure out where you at, you're trying to figure out if this is what God's calling you to, I want to encourage you to sign up for your consultation. Now, if you are a wife who's saying, I'm tired of talking about that ninja, I'm done with this, I'm ready to work on me, because I see that this thing is bigger than me, I see that this thing is getting serious, I see that, God is calling me to, to a higher place on this journey, I see that God is calling me to a place, you need to sign up for your consultation. You can start doing your work, and that's at the Her Bonus Boost. All right, so it's the same website, www.marriagechroniclesbytanika.com. This is what helps wives to start working on themselves, because in order for you to be anything you need to be for your husband, you got to make sure that you are in right standing with God. You got to make sure that you got your stuff in order. You got to make sure that you got your ducks in line, your I's dotted, your T's crossed. You got to make sure that you are on the right place. So you can sign up for your consultation. www.marriagechroniclesbytanika.com. Listen, y'all, I hope y'all got something from that today. I hope I have been an encouragement to you. I hope I have helped you to see something different concerning your marriage. Listen, if your husband has left his marital home or even inside of the marital home and he is living a separate life and addiction, abandonment, or adultery has taken place, your husband is bewitched. The only reason your husband is alive, he's in a comatose state. He's in a comatose state. And this is what the strange woman is doing. She has him alive in that place. That's keeping him from suicide. That's keeping him from taking his life. That's keeping him from, the guilt and the shame. She is a distraction for your husband to not think about all the wrong that he's doing. Don't think for a moment that your husband is not thinking about or God's not dealing with your husband about the wrong that he's doing. He is. And so that's where the strange woman is coming in place, because she's the distraction for that. God is going to do what he said he's going to do. What your job is to make sure that you hear from God, make sure that you get your instruction from God, and stand on the word. Stand on that word that God has given you. All right. Listen, I hope this has been encouragement to you. I'll talk to you guys soon. Blessings.